Welcome to yet another edition of our talk show, Conversations with LJ. This is a platform where we focus on positive human interest stories. We talk to exceptional people in our lives who have made it despite all the challenges that they have gone through. And we hope with these stories, we get to inspire you, we get to motivate you, you get to realize that whatever problems you are facing, somebody has faced even bigger problems than you. Therefore, you must march on, you must soldier on, and go for your goals that you've set in your life. And before we continue, let me take this opportunity to thank you for subscribing to our channel. Thank you for liking all our videos. We can only grow if you continue giving us the support. So please tell your children, tell your parents, tell your bosses, tell your neighbors to look for Conversations with LJ on YouTube and subscribe. Remember, subscription is for free. In today's episode, I talked to a very interesting gentleman. Actually, he's my first boss. He was my editor when I first cut teeth into the media space. He's a very jolly, but a very strict gentleman that I have enjoyed working with and that I've kept a very cordial relationship with. Some call him controversial, but he will answer that himself. And that is none other than Spencer Mogapi. Welcome to Conversations with LJ.
Thank you very much, Batali, for having me.
A lot of people don't know that you are Huitsone.
Yeah, I'll tell you a short story about how my name actually ended up being Spencer. I was born Huitsone Shima Mogapi.
Shima,
yeah.
Another revelation.
That's those were the names given to me by my mother. But when we were doing, I think, Form 1, thereabout, we had a Canadian teacher arrive at our school. And then she was asking each one of us in class to stand up and say out our names. And then I stood up and said, my name is Huitsone Mogapi, and she kept trying to pronounce Huitsone and she couldn't. Up until another guy at the back who I was close to, his name was Kireman Schoolboy Moleleking, and she stood up and said, no, just call him Spencer to save yourself from all the trouble. And then the teacher said, yes, I'll call him Spencer. And then that's how it caught up, ultimately. And then along the way, it even superseded my real name. So everybody, or too many of the people, especially those who only got to meet me after I had finished at secondary school, they call me Spencer.
And the name actually went into the official document.
Especially how, because it was the name that was now known, it superseded my real names. And then I could only concede. It was a concession on my part to say, I have now become this name.
And how did your parents feel about this?
No, my mother didn't have any problem. But she kept me calling me to the end, Shima. That's the real name that she never would call me Spencer at any given day.
That's interesting. I've always called you Commander.
Yes.
When I got to Gazette, the first person that I had using this name was Ruben Pitts. Everybody was calling you Commander.
Yes.
I never got to ask why you are called Commander. Where does the name come from?
Commander was, given by Ruben in the sense of me being the overall commander of the troops, basically, the newsroom. So it, of course, was started by him, and everybody, including you when you joined, they started also calling me by the name Commander. Basically meaning the leader of the troops, as it were.
Interestingly, I still use it up to this date.
Yeah.
But who is Spencer?
Spencer is a guy who was born in Tonota, grew up there, born and bred, and later on came to Gaborone to join the University of Botswana. I had wanted actually to become an engineer, civil engineer. I tried my luck at Polytechnic. I think after 5-6 months I left because I was very terrible at mathematics. And then I went at the University of Botswana where I started studying sociology and economic history. And then I graduated, went on straight to join Botswana Gazette. And then I started making my name in journalism. I think that's basically the long and short of it, yeah.
Yeah, and you touched on something that I was going to ask before. During your days and our days, there was no school of journalism in Botswana.
Yes, yes, yes.
And it seems like those guys who didn't study journalism you managed to hold it. Where did you get the knowledge to navigate and all that?
You know, when I left the university, I was recommended by a friend to go and talk to Clara Olsed, who was the managing editor and owner of Botswana Gazette. And then she started this conversation with me and asked me if I was a reader of newspapers during my days at the university. And I told her, and then she started in her way interviewing me by just trying to find out if I understood Botswana's institutions, talk to me about if I knew what NDB was, how different it was from Barclays, as it then was called. I wanted to know if I knew what DCEC meant. In a way, I was able to, I think, be able to answer those questions for her. And then at the end of it, even before the formal interview started, she said, I think I'll give you a job. And then she said, you are the first person, I would say, in this company to get the job immediately upon me talking to them. So good luck. And then I joined Botswana Gazette the same day.
That's very interesting because the same thing you went through, I went through in 2003.
Yeah, I remember.
I think what was different between me and you was that she asked me, we are going to the elections. How do you predict them and all that? And she was our first employer, both of us. Anyway. So what brought you into journalism? There were many fails. Why journalism?
I don't want to say it was just a mere coincidence. I had always wanted to become a journalist. And it was for me an opportunity really to do what I always loved. The only difference was that I was getting paid, which was, of course, very little at the time. But I immediately started writing stories that really impressed Clara Olsen. And let me maybe go back a little bit. Said a week into me joining Botswana Gazette, she went for a holiday in the United States. And she left the paper with Peter Olsen. And I started working under Peter Olsen. Clara was there maybe for a month. And Peter Olsen effectively called Clara in my presence and told her that you have hired a very good guy here. I think we should basically forgo the probation part and get him on a full-time basis before other people get him from us. So I got appointed on a full-time basis even before a month into the job. So it was a job that I had always wanted to do, basically.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And when you joined this, what are the remarkable names that were there in the profession that you looked up to?
There were quite a number. In the newsroom when I was arrived, there was Nchindo, a very good writer. And he gave me really a hard time by telling me that I needed to learn and try not to become a celebrity. He told me that he didn't want me to, new as I was, to start pretending that I knew stuff in journalism. So those were the ropes that basically he was putting me through. And then there was Ernest.
Ernest or
Moloi, who is now at Botswana Guardian. He was in the newsroom too at Botswana Gazette. So those are the two names that really had a profound impact on me at the beginning. Ernest was a jolly guy. He wanted really to teach everybody, and I really got along very well with him.
So you can safely say these are the people that shaped you in a way.
Exactly.
Interestingly, what Nchindo told you, because I have a very good memory, is what you told me.
Yeah.
You told me you don't want a celebrity journalist.
Yes.
And you told me I should not come with an attitude that I know everything.
Yes.
I have to learn.
Yes.
And I must thank you for that. Those were very good lessons.
In fact, pretty much every journalist that I've had an impact on, my fight with them would have been when they were trying to become celebrities. I really resisted that. You can ask anybody who worked with me. I told them that the work of a journalist is first and foremost to be the voice of the voiceless, not to you to be on the, because to become a celebrity, you immediately go onto the side of the powerful, isn't it?
Exactly.
And then that's not what journalism is about.
Yes, and I remember you saying your job is to report, not to be part of the story.
Not to be part of the story.
Okay. I think the year, if not mistaken, was October 9, 2003, if not mistaken.
Yeah.
You took what I would call a leap of faith a giant step, together with other notable names in the profession, Outsa Mokoni and Prof. Malema. You'll correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You left your respective jobs and formed Sunday Standard.
That's true. That's very true.
Where did the idea come from?
I came up with the idea. I could easily have gone on to become the founding editor of Sunday Standard as it became. But look, I was very, very worried that myself, I was still very new in journalism relatively, and Outsa was such a big name in it. I really tried for many months, I would tell you, to convince Outsa to come and join this project that I had in my mind. One morning, I left my house, drove to Tlokweng. He was running a bar there in the butchery. We sat there for maybe 5 hours, me still trying to convince him. And it was on that day that he ultimately said, okay, I'll come and join you. And then he told his family that he would be leaving Botswana Guardian to come and join Spencer at this new newspaper. We didn't even have the name. I had been talking to several people myself over many, many months. And these people would have included, I think, Quill Hemmens, who had left Bank of Botswana. Why Quill Hemmens? Because he was a big, big name in the economic sphere. And what I had in mind was to start a business and economic newspaper. So he was there in the beginning. And then another person would have been Louis Nchindo, the famous Nchindo, who later on people said he was the real owner of...
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about yeah. But I talked to so many people, and almost to the man, each one of them told me that there was room for a newspaper. The newspaper had to be addressing issues in a more serious way. The newspaper had to report in depth. The newspaper had to take care of all the concerns that the public, that the government had about the existing media at the time. So those were the issues that I had when I took a decision to go and start the Sunday Standard.
Now that I learned what it's Sunday Standard is your brainchild. The broadsheet, the name, broadsheet, for those who don't know,
yes.
Yeah. What was behind
the broadsheet was Outsa's brainchild. The name was Prof's brainchild. I had basically grappled with naming this newspaper. I couldn't come up with a real name. I think at one point we called it Evening Standard. At one point we called it Friday, those UK names.
Yeah.
Until Prof said, no, let's just call it Sunday Standard. And then without argument, we immediately adopted the name and said, then we'll have to move it to the weekend. And we did that. Yeah.
What was the thinking behind it? Most newspapers were weekly, or Wednesday, or Friday. What was the idea? Who, at that time, let's say, I'm not asking one, who reads a paper on a Sunday? What was the idea behind all that?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because there were very, very few people who cared about reading a weekend newspaper. We made decision as we went on before we even started publishing. We had settled for Friday because Miri was a big, big thing for Friday. Guardian.
Before they went daily.
Before they went daily. Guardian was a very big presence also. And then we said, okay, then maybe we should also become a part of it. And then in our trying to come up with a name, when we settled for Sunday Standard, we immediately said, okay, then let's move on to Sunday as the day and the name, but we will have to publish on a Saturday. So it's not like we always wanted to bring out the paper on Sunday. No, it was initially, I think it moved from Friday then to Saturday. And then when the name didn't suit the Saturday, we moved it now to Sunday, yes.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And at that time, the media space was owned by big names. Yeah. The Olsons, I think Dada was part of, Saturday was part of Gazette. Yeah. You have Bometlaitile, Pilebo Titus, and Buyako, Mary. You have William Jones, Guardian. Allow me to use this. Yeah. You were small boys then.
Yeah.
Who did you think you were to penetrate into a market owned by such big names.
Yeah, hence, and it was not only at the ownership level, it was also at professional level, the journalists. There were big names that, especially me, when I came in, I found and looked up to. Also, like I'm saying, had always been there. Prof had always been there. In their different ways, they had themselves really become big names of journalism. It was exactly because of the reasons that you are putting, that we struggled, or I struggled myself, especially because these big guys they immediately became aware that this was the young boy who was basically leading everybody astray by telling them that the newspaper had any hope. Oza always came and laughed and told me about the stories, and they were telling him, why do you allow yourself to be misled by a guy who doesn't know anything about journalism? But look, in the end, it paid out, mainly because I would tell you, we didn't over-strategize. We didn't sit down to do a lot of calculations. It was, in a way, just fly blind, saying if it works, it will work. If it doesn't, it won't. And then it paid off in a big way. But this is not to say we did not struggle. We struggled a lot in the beginning.
Yes. You know, at Conversations with LJ, we only mention people's names when we are talking positive stuff.
Yes.
So I won't mention names.
Yeah.
But some people were pissed off. You and I know that. They were not happy with the decision that you took. How did that sit with you? Were you not scared that you upset Baholo?
No, not really scared, but it kind of gave me a lot of encouragement. And I suspected deep down that for these people to be taking so much effort just to pay attention to this little boy who is just coming in, then there must be something that we are really on it. And this kind of gave us the wins to really give it the best shot. And we did. I will tell you, in the beginning, we went on for months and months and months without salary. And I had a car. I think Oza, Prof didn't have a car. I had a car that I was still paying. I remember the bank calling me to remind me that I had not been paying for 3 months or so. And then it was a mess. And then I went to Louis Nchindo there to go and convince the bank to please give us more, because that car was the only thing that we had, driving around, trying to meet clients and everything. And then when we started making some money, we paid the car, and then we went on.
Here you were. You were just news reporters or journalists.
Yes.
None of you, I would say, had the business, the experience of running a business.
Yeah.
What made you think you'd win? Where did you get this courage?
The courage came from the fact that I was convinced as a reporter at Botswana Gazette that there was room for true journalism, or the one that I wanted. You would know, Clara was a very strict patron when it comes to editing. I felt during the time that some of the stories, if I had the power, they would come out differently. And I dreamt one day of owning a newspaper, because in her way, when she was angry, she would also say, Spencer, why can't you go and study your own newspaper?
I guess when you could see me smiling.
Yeah, because when
I wanted you to say that because I have
When you try to resist her own direction, especially with regard to a story, she would say, but we have been arguing over this. Why can't you just go and start your own newspaper? I've taken a decision. And then you know that you have no way of convincing her. So one day I thought, maybe she's right. I needed to take a real big risk. It was a big risk.
Yes.
Yeah, because you can imagine I was just coming into Gazette. I was now relatively well paid. She had been very generous to me. She had made me an editor, the youngest editor at the time, because she thought I was really qualified to do it. But I still felt that I did not have the power that I needed. Let me tell you why I brought in Oza. Oza brought in an element of believability and experience, and it paid off, because when there were chaos, especially during production, he brought in some stability. And over the years, I've really grown to respect him. He has paid a lot in far as sacrifices for that paper. He would be far if it was not for Sunday Standard. I'm still convinced that it was a very good decision that I took.
You know, I love what you are saying, and this is very rare to see. Which is leading to our next question. It is very rare to find, especially Botswana shareholders, talking good about the other. I think I must commend you for that.
Yeah.
But like as I said, generally we believe for Botswana we struggle to work together to form partnerships.
Yeah.
How have you sustained Sunday Standard?
It has not been easy. Look, partnership, if it's going to work, you have to understand each other. What makes one guy tick, what makes him happy, what makes him angry. We have been together during the best of our times, I think, and during the worst of our times. I was with him when the paper was doing really well. We had turned the corner. I was with him when the news broke that his wife had passed on. We were doing a story somewhere in Gaborone Central. There were the three of us with a photographer. I think it was White's Jacob. So I've seen him at his weakest. I've seen him at his best. So I really know him. So for you to have staying power as partners, I think you really need to understand each other. And then over and above that, you have to be willing to make compromises, make sacrifices on behalf of the other. You have to really make sure that when the other is down, you are willing to lift them up. Because the instinct, natural instinct is that when the other one is down, you move on and you leave them there. That is when the whole thing collapses. Yeah. But you have to understand that the project is actually much bigger than individual sums. You have to be together for it to be really successful.
Yes. You talked of the struggles that you went through, going for months without salaries. I think if my memory serves me well, at some point we had that, I think Sunday Times was buying you out or something, or you were willing to sell.
Yeah.
I think it was during those formative years, the first year.
That's true. The Sunday Times at the time, they were coming this side to do a lot of stories because there were still issues to do with what happened during the liberation. Sunday Times would come and they would seek our help as the local journalists. And then when they went back to report, I think they told their guys there that they were basically working with a newspaper in Botswana called Sunday Standard, which was struggling but had some very good stories in it. So the guys came from South Africa. I think it was the CEO at the time. He just wanted to come and see our operations. And I will tell you, he was very impressed with the quality of the news, but no money coming out of it. And then he told us, I'm going back to Johannesburg to report, but I really like what I'm seeing. And then when he got back, these guys, more of them came to basically now to start talking to us about buying us. They wanted a controlling stake, effectively, but they wanted to keep us so that we carried on reporting. They would do management part. So government got, I think, the wind of it. I remember one morning when I arrived, Oza says, we have a call, the president wants to see us.
That was President Mogapi.
Yes, it was Festus Mogapi. We went to his office. We didn't know what he wanted. And then when we got there, he said something that he said, I'm aware that you guys might be willing or trying to sell the paper to the South Africans. Botswana government would be very worried. Because why? He said, we don't want Botswana to be used as a springboard to attack Zimbabwe, as it is happening in the South African media. So we would not allow it. It would be very bad for Botswana's relations with Zimbabwe. So be very, very careful. So and I kept quiet. It was him and Oza exchange. In my end, I said, but we have been operating for many months now, and we have not received any help from Botswana government. So what are you saying? Because the reason why we are talking to the South Africans is because they are coming in with deep pockets and they want to help. With them, the paper will not collapse. And he said, no, we would continue with what we are doing to other papers. Effectively not saying we will help you. So, but it was clear, I think, from his tone that what he meant was, guys, please don't sell. And then we reflected and said, we should not sell. You never know. The Botswana government, when they tell you, must be very careful. And then we told the South Africans that, guys, let's hold on. to this thing first. Botswana government is not very comfortable. And then, lo and behold, after a few months, the paper started making a turn for the better, and we started making some money. We never now needed any Sunday Times money.
Did government support through advertising, or it was just from?
No, it was mainly it was the private sector. Sunday Standard has always survived on the private sector. Even during its best of times, it was mainly the private sector that really held on. Look, the reason why we struggled so badly in the beginning was it was a natural way of starting a business. But for us, it was painful because we had no other source of income. That is why we were in a hurry when the South Africans came and said, we have the money to sell. I was willing myself to give them the paper.
So when former President Mogapi called you and asked you not to sell, were you not skeptical? Because if my memory serves me well, at that time, I think there was advertising ban on Sunday Stand, on The Guardian. And again, Oates, I remember the shrinking president story. Didn't you connect this and became skeptical?
Oh, yeah. In fact, but when we started the advertising ban on The Guardian, it had long been resolved. We had gone past that by way of a court settlement, the judgment at the High Court. So we believed that what the president was saying, he really meant it. He was concerned. Look, it was a very tense geopolitical time. Zimbabwe's Robert Mugabe had become very, very, very unruly, and he was a big, every SADC meeting, SADC heads of government summit, Zimbabwe was the number one issue, and nobody was able to control him. And he had, I think, a soft spot for Botswana for some reason, and Botswana felt that if they joined the band, were going to criticizing him publicly, they would also lose him. So that's the way I understood it myself at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then talking about the struggles that you went through, President Mogapi coming into the picture, and his friend Louis Nchindo, now I'm bringing him into the fold. There were talks that Sunday Standard belonged to Louis Nchindo. Maybe there's an opportunity to tell us the truth.
Yes, I will tell you the truth. Let me start in the end. When Louis Nchindo left the Botswana, I think it was the board, or maybe, of course, with the tacit agreement from Botswana government, they came up with this investigation by Slaughter and May. Slaughter and May is one of the best law firms in London. They came to investigate Botswana, Chindo, blah, blah, blah. And Sunday Standard was one of the issues that they were also investigating, just to find if there was a link between Chindo and Sunday Standard. And in their report, the report is still there, you can go and check it. They came out to say, that's Slaughter and me, to say we found no evidence of Louis Nchindo owning Sunday Standard. This is not to say Louis Nchindo had not helped Sunday Standard. He helped Sunday Standard a lot, especially during the beginning. First 6 months that I told you, when we did not have salaries, he gave each one of the three of us, I think it was around 20,000 for those 6 months, to say, guys, go and see what you can do for yourself.
Just out of his generosity and benevolence.
Yes. And then we had a good relationship, because don't forget, I told you that in the beginning, he was one of the people that I went to convince that I wanted to start a newspaper.
Yes.
And then when the money to start, the capital to start the paper, we could not raise on our own, he recommended to us Peu Holdings. Peu Holdings is this company that was owned by the BS and the Botswana. It was giving out seed capital to citizen-owned companies. And then we applied. And then we got funding. And in this company, so Zedilo Services, Peu Holdings was a shareholder, and also it funded us, the promoters. So they had put in a lot of money. I think it was just over 1.3 million at the time, a lot of money for the time, way beyond what they were sponsoring other of their companies. So that is where people then started really believing that Nchindo owned this company. It had to do with almost every day, every week, we would go for drinks at News Cafe with him. He would want to know how the paper was doing. And he was this big socialite. We were basically nothing. I think people seeing us with him would have a reason to suspect that he was buying them or he was actually the one behind them. But that was before he even had any interest himself of owning the paper. And then, because of that relationship that we had, while we were struggling, I remember one morning he called me and told me that he would be leaving for, I think it's Belarus in East Europe. And then, because he knew we were always struggling with printing money, he said, Spence, I'll give you some money for printing. I hope you'll not need it. But if you do, this is the money. And he gave me 2 checks, one 50,000, the other 50,000. And then he went. And then for I think 2 months, 3 months, we were using that money as and when that it was with me. He had gave me an instruction, please don't tell your partners, because you know those guys I have issues. He had issues and they knew about it. So when he was there, the money ran out. And then when he called, I told him, and he sent me to one of his friends, very good guy. His name was, because he's still there, is CEDA. And his CEDA gave me another 50,000.
And you're still not to tell Otsa and Prof?
No, this time I'm going with Otsa, I think, yeah, to go, because the paper needed to do printing. And then CEDA was laughing and said, this thing is not going to survive, the paper. I'm telling you guys, I've been in business for this long, blah, blah, blah. Many years later, I remember when I went to see CEDA, he said, I'm sorry, Spencer. I couldn't believe at the time that you guys would survive to become such a big newspaper. And he was right. Even myself at the time, I could not have foreseen Sunday Standard surviving. The margins were this small. Yeah. So every day we survived by running around. Every Friday when we had to go for printing, we had to run around. We were also at one point held by people like Moses Lekauka, if you remember him. Yeah. So it was that big struggle. And again, when I went to convince Lekauka, he just laughed and said, I can't believe this.
He also didn't believe that the paper...
Yeah, he didn't.
And here you are, interestingly, there's nothing so frustrating like being doubted.
Yeah.
When you are doing something, even this is not Spencer, it's Batlalifi.
Yeah.
There's nothing frustrating like that. You don't have money, you have to ask for money from Mr. Nchindo. You have to go to CEDA, he doesn't believe in your project. You go to Rele Kaukau, he doesn't believe in your project.
Yeah.
Surely this would dampen someone's spirits. How did you feel about it?
Obviously, you are coming into this thing as an underdog, and you have to accept those low credentials that you are bringing to the table. And then one moment that really, I think, wanted to sap what a little energy I had left with me was when we received a letter from Bay Holdings, effectively telling us that they were calling their loan. Anyway, I'm talking about 1.2 million. Then they said, we have an offer from Louis Nchindo. You guys have to better it, or at least give us, at the very least, what it's equal to. That is, I think that's fueled again, this thing that the paper is owned by Louis Nchindo. I was myself, because I had come into this thing really for independence of journalism. I knew in my heart that if we allowed this paper to be taken by Chindo, and even if we worked hard to try to prove our independence, it was never going to work. So the best thing was for me and my partners to resist Chindo takeover. He had told us that now he wanted to take the paper. He had been helping us. He doesn't believe we had what it would take to really run that newspaper. He was bringing in top managers, blah, blah, blah. I was not convinced. I had left Botswana Gazette to fight for independent journalism. So what we did was we approached CEDA.
Okay, before you go there.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's important to clear this thing.
Yes.
Because I'm glad you confirmed that Nchindo had interest in the paper. And talk of the town was that you owed Nchindo at one point and he wanted to take the paper. So now you are saying, no, you didn't owe him. He wanted to buy it for hostile takeover, to say, through Pay Holdings.
Yeah, no, basically that was it. And the people who would say, I would say they were always talking about us owing Chindo. I think they made reference to the money that I told you about. Those two 50,000 Pula checks plus the money that I went on to take from CEDA, because it was also still going to be paid by Louis.
Okay.
So Louis would have owned Sunday Standard if we had agreed for him to buy it from Peo Holdings. We didn't.
What did you do?
We went to CEDA. At CEDA, it was managed by Thapelo Matseka. When we got there, I think Thapelo said something that he said, yeah, it's a lot of money. And it was even way, I think, above, or maybe we learned later that the money that he had given us to buy was way above what a CEO at CEDA was allowed. We didn't know those things. And then he gave us the money. As it turned out, it now became worse, this thing that we had cheated in Chindo. He had given us the money, he had made us what we were, and then in the end, I didn't understand. We had worked so hard. But then I said to myself, you know what? If you are coming to these things with no name behind you, and no surname especially, nobody knew who my father was, nobody knew who my mother was. As Oza always told us, we should never have forgotten that we were the first in our own families. Number one, for me to get a degree, Oza for him also, you see, to literally want to own something. And that was against the grain as it is. So convincing people would come over time. And people, Batswana like winners. If you are an underdog, you are never going to be taken as. It's only now that the culture maybe is changing. But if you go back 25 years ago, it was not that easy. Yeah.
No, that's very true. And CEDA financed you.
Yes.
And then you.
And then we got it, and then I would still keep Louis as a friend, but he was clearly unhappy. When he met me and say, Spencer, Spencer, but it was it was all in a jovial mode. He would call me, we still go for evening drinks at News Cafe. But look, in the end, I think people pushed him. I don't want to say who pushed him, but because that would go against the spirit of your your podcast.
Yeah. And without mentioning names, descriptions would work in the sense where there were people who were pushing this propaganda that you were Nchindo's boys, you owed Nchindo, Nchindo wanted to take over. Who were these people without mentioning names?
It was like I said earlier on, mainly the journalists fueled it.
Professional jealousy.
Yeah, I'd call it that. Yeah, that's a more apt name. Yeah, there was that. There was also just resistance to accept that these guys have gambled and they have won. As it turned out, we were the pioneers, because you can see how many journalists later on started newspapers. Yeah, so if we had not taken the risk ourselves.
Precisely.
Yeah, it would have taken.
You actually gave people the courage to take this leap of faith.
Yeah.
Yes. And then Sunday Standard became, let's now talk more about Sunday Standard. Sunday Standard became known for hard-hitting news.
Yes.
Were you not at... and I would say you were paying to government, especially to the successive government after Remugai. Didn't this...
Yeah, you know, I'll tell you. The Sunday Standard has really played a big role in establishing a landscape of governance in Botswana, whether you like it or not. I've seen people trying to dismiss Sunday Standard, but I will tell you that governance, especially holding power accountable, was what from early on we had set for ourselves. And breaking stories were never in short, they were always flowing with Sunday Standard. And we became this go-to thing for journalists. We started attracting good names, younger journalists coming in, wanting to establish names for themselves, came to join Sunday Standard. And I'm very happy. We have an illustrious, a galaxy of names. I saw that you interviewed Sunny here. Sunny worked under me, and
that is that is one flagship project.
I'll tell you, if you go and talk to Godfrey Khanitsa, literally, I taught him how to start writing on a computer.
He actually
Very
wrote
good.
a very positive thing about you the other day, calling you Raho by your son's name.
Oh, but yeah.
Yeah, just paying homage to you.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
he has already given you your flowers
Yeah,
while you were
and
still
then
alive.
Oliver Mudi said another name. But there are many others who went on, came in, they were coming, I think, from Port Elizabeth. They are now, some went to become executives in the public relations field,
Yeah.
but they all passed through Sunday Standard. And every time I meet, including also at mass media complex, if you go there to their newsroom, you'll see lots and lots, especially female journalists, and nothing gives me greater pleasure than seeing those people that I literally worked with every morning to bring them to that. They are now very senior journalists. Yeah.
As I said, you unsettled government. Didn't this cause trouble for you?
No, it did quite often, especially now, because look, Mogapi was a very liberal president. He would argue with you, he would take you head on. He was very tolerant. He was an intellectual, but then came Ian Kham. It was, I think, during Ian Khama that we really now started to have problems with Botswana government. That's when we had intelligence coming in, first to take computers, take phones, I think, for the editor, and then came the sedition charge. That was the most unsettling part, I think. But before we go to that, we also had some very good moments of covering really good stories. Other than the investigative parts, you will remember the death of Louis Nchindo. It was a big national event. And Sunday Standard really set itself apart in how it was covered. You remember there was that national anxiety of how the whole thing was. So we did that. That's the moment that still stands out. And then came later on, I think, also Homolimo Motswaledi. There was also, and then I remember we crossed the border. It was me, Oza again, and Sejakomo. We went to where he had spent the last night. That's Homolimo. We tried to talk to the security guy. The security guy told us that he had not been there overnight. We tried to check the CCTVs, things. And then there was that connecting of the dots that there was something amiss. So those were the big stories that we covered that immediately come to mind, other than, of course, the general investigative piece that really, really unsettled Botswana government.
Yeah. You talked about your clashes with government, I would say, and I'm glad you brought in Homolimo Motswaledi's story. Here you were, somebody would say you were poking your nose where they're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
And there was a time when the intelligence outfit, the DIS, was really fit. As you said, they confiscated your computers and all that. Didn't this worry you? How about your families? You three of you are married. You've got parents.
I was most worried when the sedition case came in. Edgar had run away, you remember? Yeah, Ghana, it was precisely because around that time. Edgar had run away. I remember when the news broke out, Uza was in Cape Town. I called him and told him, hey, it's looking really bad here. I told him, my view is that he better just stay there and not come back, because these guys, this time around, it's not looking very good. And then he said, no, I think I should come back. My instincts were telling me that it would save us the whole pain if he just did not come back, stayed in South Africa, because his family also was there. But Uza insisted that, no, I need to come back and face the music. Let them prove in court their case. If I sit here and do not come back home, they are going to say, everybody is going to say, the reason why I'm not coming back is because I know I'm guilty. He had a point, but I didn't want us to go. And it almost, I think, Uza was headed for jail, the way things were moving. And then came first the new government, the new president, Mokgweetsi Masisi. He was coming in also as media friendly at the beginning and the like. And the judges, once a new president comes in, they try to read or second guess. And then we won the case, as it were. But I didn't see that happening during Ian Khama's time.
Yeah, I remember your journalist, Edgar Zimani,
Yes.
fled to South Africa because of the Stories accident. Yeah, the then President Khama.
That's true.
And then here was Oates being arrested. And I think he was the first person to be charged with sedition.
Yeah.
It's a very serious offense
Very
in the
serious
country.
offense.
You were left with Prof. Lele Babedi. As I
Yes.
said, you've got children and
Yeah.
you've got families and all that. Your wife, why don't you quit this?
I will tell you, without even my mother calling me, people would call her and say, you know, Shima is part of this thing that the government is always complaining about.
I've experienced that,
on television, so please talk to her. I remember when I got there, one of family friends was there, and then she said, we've had some visitors here. They came here in nice suits, and then they asked, is this Spencer's place? We said yes, but we didn't get to really understand what they were talking about. I think they were effectively telling me that those were the security people. They were trying to find out really who they can influence from where you're coming from. I don't know.
Or maybe trying to intimidate them.
Yeah, but
and the intimidation will pass on to you.
You see, especially because they told me that they asked, is this where is this his family home? But look, it was good for us at the time because we were growing up. When you are now grown up, we have a family. The first thing that comes to your mind is to say, what if I go? You look at your children, you look at your wife. You also do not have that energy, that zeal. It has long left you. So those are the things that you consider.
Interestingly, when as Spencer, you've had so many labels. You've been aligned with different things. You've been called pro-Khama. You've been called anti-Khama, pro-Masisi, anti-Masisi, pro-UDC. Now, where do you fall and how do all these labels affect your professional integrity?
I will tell you, when you are a journalist, because people now know me more as a commentator than a real journalist, but it's journalism that I really enjoy myself, not being an analyst. But you want to, when a new president comes in, you want to give them a chance. You can't just criticize a man or a woman when they are arriving before they even set the tone of what they want. So when you are at that moment, that is when people say, Khama has bought Spence. But you have to be fair to the person when they are coming in. I remember I wrote one article when Khama came in and said, Khama has an opportunity to become the best president ever. I still stand by it. He had everything set for him to become that president. There was a lot of goodwill. People really believed in him. You remember the speech that he made, 5Ds, 4Ds at the beginning. It could easily have come from Obama, a world-class speech. And then I said, oh my goodness, this man has what it takes to become the best president ever. Of course, with time you get disappointed. Then people start calling you names. It's part of being a journalist. I think journalists should have a thick skin. That's what I believe in. You must be able to withstand criticism. Nowadays, what I see is that every time a journalism is being questioned, including their motives, they run away or they just recoil into silence because they cannot. There's no point in doing that.
Yeah, and I think the peak of the criticism against you was during the Masisi administration. I think without going into politics, I think the UDC, at one point one would think they would skin you alive, the UDC followers, if they met you. They really detested you.
And I will tell you,
what was your take on that?
And it was terribly unfair on their part against me because I felt that for too long we had supported, especially Botswana National Front in our coverage. They really had no platform. Literally, Botswana government had closed them out. They could not go to BTV, they could not go to Radio Botswana. It was just a private media, as it was at the time, led by Sunday Standard, that gave them all the platform. And I'm talking about Nakwabu, Mupo especially. But when Masisi came in, look, we had been fighting Khama for 10 years. And we felt that we now have a president who was talking everything that the media had been calling for. listening to the media, listening to trade unions and everything. It was only for a short while, unfortunately. That was the time of Masisi. And it was a strategy that we had adopted as Botswana Editors Forum, that we needed to take this coming president, this new president, through the paces so that he understood the media. Media literacy had to be something that he could himself internalize. That was the strategy. It didn't work out, like I said, because along the way, he left the media himself, left it as in no longer talking to the journalists, no longer engaging, and then we lost him. Yeah.
And then the watchdog.
Yes.
Your column. I think I could say you've got haters, you've got lovers. What is the spirit behind the watchdog?
I will tell you, when I started writing this column, it went on for a few months without a name. The watchdog, the label, was introduced by Ota. And then he said, no, let's give this thing a name and then make sure it becomes consistent. Basically, that is it. The watchdog was created as a political column. Like you would not believe it. You would know better because I have always been a business journalist myself. But we had Sunday Standard, everything was business, including front pages, but we lacked in politics, which is why I decided at the time that, okay, let me try to go into writing a political column to cater for people who follow politics. And as it turned out, people started enjoying it. And the whole thing was really to hold those in power accountable. It started, I think, during Mogapi's time, yeah. But it really peaked under Ian Khama.
And you write very hard-hitting,
yeah,
opinions and all that.
Yes.
Do you enjoy causing pain to these politicians?
No,
because you clearly
that's
hurting them.
That's the sad
or
part.
Or rather hurting their egos.
That's really the sad part, because there are some politicians who I personally like myself, love. And then they disappoint me, and then I have no choice. And then when I meet them, they grumble. Yeah, you see. And these are people across the party lines, you see. I would write something about, I really liked Mupo, I really liked PHK Kidikilo, I really liked Kwalahobe, I liked Mohwasa. And I'm talking about not Mohwasa of today, Mohwasa in the opposition. Yeah, yes. He was a very likable guy. But look, I also feel disappointed. It's not like I enjoy what I write. No, sometimes I really have to bite the bullet and write it. But you can see in their face when they meet me.
Yeah.
And I would have moved on myself because it's nothing personal. I write something today. If you ask me next week, I would even have forgotten unless you say, when you were saying 1, 2, 3, because it's not something that I really hold as a grudge against anyone.
They call you harsh, sometimes call you arrogant.
Yeah.
Or inconsiderate.
Yeah.
Do these labels don't make you change your mind and tone down?
They do in a way, because I'm also human. Yeah, but sometimes they make me to even tighten a bit, try to go beyond what they say, just to show them that what they would have done really warrants a public response. It's not like I'm always going to respond the way they want, no. But I'm human. After some time, you feel that, oh, I've hitten on this man, let me just give him a break.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, as we wrap up, you left the mainstream media, like
yes.
writing. You just focused on, you went into corporate communications now as a consultant.
Yeah.
What necessitated the move?
There was a time when the media was making money. And then came a time when there was that crunch, no money coming. And then I sat down again with Oza and told him, you know what? We really need to look at this business model. We can no longer rely on the newspaper to pay all of us. I'm going out to try to diversify the base. And then I chose public relations, strategic communications. I really enjoy it. My background in journalism has really come very, very handy. Media relations is part of what I do a lot. Media training, I do a lot. I coach executives on how to prepare for press conferences, how to prepare for handling the media. So those are the issues that I have long internalized. I know how to handle the media because I have been part of the media. So it's not like I've been lost to the media, not at all. I still really like the media.
Yeah, you know, there's this thing, a lot of people that have gone to PR schools, they always complain that journalists become public relations officers and all that, media, whatever. Doesn't that affect you?
No, it doesn't affect me.
And what role do you think you
play? They have a reason to feel an edge to protect the turf, so to speak, because they went to class for it. I didn't go. But the same thing happened when I joined journalism. I didn't go to a journalism school, but in the end, I became a good journalist. I believe that whatever you do, as long as you put effort into it. I've seen, look, if you take some of the best bank managers in the world, you would see that some of them are engineers.
I'll tell you, I recently learned that, I'll just say her name. I recently learned that the MD for BBS Bank, Bezani, is actually a humanities graduate.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
And she's doing very well.
Yeah, very well, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But look, also Sipo Shoa at BBS, a very good bank executive. But he's an English graduate, a very good English student, yeah.
There was this guy he used to be the CEO of Rand Bank. I forget his name. It's first Rand, actually.
Yeah.
He actually didn't have banking background too. Yeah. Final question.
Yes.
The state of media in Botswana. Citizen journalism has come in. How has citizen journalism impacted mainstream media? And what's just the state of, are we losing it or we're improving?
Mainstream journalism is actually struggling to survive, because social media has taken over. I think what they need to do is to adapt. If they don't adapt, technology will basically run over them. They need to make sure that the context part of journalism, mainstream journalism, stays, so that there's a difference between them and what people read online. They need to stay true to the foundations of journalism, which is gatekeeping, which is truth-telling, which also is context, but also just making sure that they are a source, a reliable source of information. But other than that, they are struggling. They have to find a way to monetize this online thing because they just do it for free. As a business, the old model is dead.
Spencer, thank you very much
for
finding time to come to Conversations with LJ and share your great story. I believe a lot of people have learned a lot and they are inspired.
I hope it's been a
thank you very much.
Good one. Thank you.
We've come to the end of yet another great episode of Conversations with LJ. As I always say, I believe you'll be inspired from the story that Spencer or any of our guests shares with you. If you think you've got problems, if you think you're going through challenges at work or in your business, just know that some people out there are actually facing even bigger problems than yours. And to the rest of us, let's keep clapping hands for one another until our turn comes. Until we meet again, please don't forget to click that subscription button and like the video. Thank you very much.
Thank you.